Welcome back to Bridging the Gap. My name is David James.
And my name is Colin McEvers. Today we have a special guest here.
My name is Reverend Terrance Rogers.
Hello there, Brother Rogers. I want to call him that because I think it's unique that we have a man of faith here. And I just want to let everybody know this interview just happened like maybe 20 minutes before we actually started airing. We actually ran into him here at PAC 14. And Pastor Rogers, you are running for Congress.
Yes, I'm running for Congress right here in the 1st District of Maryland.
Now, first question I want to ask you is, why run for Congress?
Yes, I'm running for Congress because the people of Maryland and of the 1st District need someone who is going to fight for them and for their interests, right? Not the interests of the ultra-rich and the wealthy, but we need someone who's going to fight for the people. And it's all people, but specifically those without a voice.
Okay. Now, when you say those without a voice, who would you be I'm talking about?
Yes. Well, the old adage that says money is power, right? Money gives you a voice. And so I'm talking about those who don't have the wealth, right? Those who cannot buy access to parties and dinners in Mar-a-Lago, right? I'm talking about the least of these, right? The working class, the lower class, the everyday American.
So you're going for kind of like a populist message for the campaigning?
Sure, but I think it's really, I'm a clergyman, right? So this evolves out of a Christian ethic, right? That says that the Christ-like modeled approach to politics is to fight for those who are marginalized and disadvantaged. So it could be anybody, but it is those who are at a disadvantage. Color doesn't matter, right? Party doesn't matter, but your current circumstance and your existential reality is what matters. We're fighting to make sure that you can live a better life, right? And so it's really not about party lines. It's not about, it is about we want to make sure that you can live a better life, right? And so I guess you can say that.
Okay.
I think it's awesome. Also being a minister myself, to see those of the faith get involved in politics. A lot of times we shy away from it. So in preparation of actually running for Congress, was there a lot of prayer going in and things like that?
Yes. Much prayer. The run is actually, it comes out of prayer. It comes out of a call. I believe that no one will be able to do this job if they are not called to it. It is not a job, it is a calling. No one will be able to fulfill the role if you have not been called to it. You've got to be called to serve people. There's a quote that says, you can't lead people if you don't love people. You can't love people if you don't know the people. You cannot know the people if you refuse to walk among the people. So God has to have called you to this work. He has to have called you to serve the people. And we will know that you are a servant sent by God if you walk among the people.
When did you realize that you wanted to run for Congress, and or maybe not wanted, but were called to run for Congress? And what is it about yourself that made you realize that you would be best to represent the people on the Eastern Shore of Maryland?
Yes, man, I'm going to take your question in two parts. I wanted to go to divinity school. Got accepted to pursue my doctorate. I wanted to do that. But I've always had visions of being a politician, and I don't want to say politician, but that's the reality. I've had visions of being a public servant and serving in politics throughout my life. But I didn't know it would be now. Again, I was going to do my doctorate, but God said now is the time. Literally, it's the call and the urge to do it. As I mentioned, it bothers me when I lay down. It bothers me when I wake up. It won't let me go. And so at this point in my life, I know what it feels like when God is talking to me, or when the Lord is pulling me in a particular direction. And so I've just decided to say yes, because this is about the people, right? This is about the people. I could go and be selfish and continue to, gain accolades and do my own thing in terms of education. But America needs a fighter. The country needs a fighter. And God has called me to fight.
I want to first ask you the question of how old you are.
Sure.
But at the same time, I wanted to say this is just awesome to see such a young man ready to serve in this type of level of servitude. But give us a little background about yourself, starting with how old you are.
31.
31.
31, yes. I am a veteran. I've served 6 years in the Army Guard. I am also former police officer. I worked down in Baltimore for the MCA Police for some time, and then I came up to Aberdeen in Hartford County and worked for Aberdeen Police. So I know what it's like to serve in that district and to walk the streets of this district. I know what the people need in this district and in that area particularly, right? But I'm also, I'm working class, man. I represent what it means to be working class and to be lower class. I grew up poor. I was raised in a 4-bedroom house, 8 siblings, 8 of us. Grew up in a 4-bedroom house, right? Our 2 parents. And so, we shared everything.
Sure.
And the clothes I wore was that of my brother's. He just outgrew them, right? And so my mom, she would, I know what it feels like to have to rely on SNAP benefits, right? The very things that this administration is trying to do away with. I know what it feels like to have to rely. So when I talk about the little people, right, and those who don't have a voice, I know what it feels like, right, because that's me. I grew up there. My mom would go to the market and she would purchase groceries on the orange card. It was orange during my time. The food stamp card, right? And so we know what it means to have to rely on a handout. But my mom taught us you're not too big. You're not too big to not help people. Don't just walk by people. You'll never be too big. You're not better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Right? She would always, and this is folk talk. I've been to school, but this is folk talk. She said, you're not too big. You're going to help and serve. She would take us to the senior house every Thanksgiving, and we would serve the seniors dinner. We would serve them meals on Thanksgiving. But guess what? These are the same groceries that my mom bought on the orange card. And so, although we were poor, right, she would still take food out of her own refrigerator, take her 8 children down to the senior home, and teach us what it meant to be servants of people. Regardless of how much money we had or didn't have, she made sure that we knew what it meant to serve. Even if it means taking food off of your own table, God will give it back.
Now, I originally come from Glen Burnie, actually, and you
Sure.
said that you were a cop in Hartford County, right?
Correct.
Are you originally from the Eastern Shore?
I am not originally from the Eastern Shore. I'm originally from Baltimore City. I grew up in Baltimore City on the west side of town. Again, lower class, lower middle class, a community that was riddled with drugs and violence, right? But my mom still raised us to do the best we could. I ended up going to college. I went to Aldous and Brodus up in Philippi, West Virginia.
Okay.
Then went to Duke University, where I just finished. I'll walk across the stage in about 10 days with my master's from
Awesome.
Duke. And like I also mentioned, I got accepted to go to Columbia, the seminary up at Columbia Union Seminary to do my doctorate. And so while I am not from one of the more luxury communities, it didn't stop me because it is about will. It's about trusting in God and pursuing and following God's path for your life. And again, this is what this is.
I mean, I was actually adopted, and the lady raised me. Also got what we called food stamps.
Sure.
Of course, I'm older, so they actually came out and looked like Monopoly. It was back in the day.
Absolutely.
But one thing I've always was taught was you can give a person fish and they'll eat once, but you teach them to fish and they'll know how to survive. My question would be do you feel like there need to be some type of regulations on SNAP benefits, like maybe promotion, like maybe try to encourage and help people to get on their feet and not just just get SNAP benefits, like you were saying, like his parents are unemployed. Maybe do we need more ways of helping people to get on their feet? And of course there's definitely a need for assistance in many ways, but how do you feel about maybe the younger ones maybe getting a hand up, and not a hand out? You know what I mean?
Sure. So I think that it has to be a holistic approach. So yes, obviously we do not just continue to give resources, and when I say resources, I mean give SNAP benefits to people who are mentally and physically able to go to work. I think that it's a holistic approach in terms of we make sure that you have the other resources available to get a job, right? I think that we do not enable people, right? And I think that there needs to be a process. We don't just cut the benefits off.
Right.
I think there should. A lot of what is going on in this administration is not thought out. And so the whole goal is to properly plan and think through how we're going to put the economy in a better position, right? And it is not just by cutting things off. I think the holistic approach is make sure that there's job readiness trainings, right, and other resources so that people can go to work.
Sure.
Right? And when they get to a point where they can provide for themselves adequately, sure. If you want to cut off the free food and money, sure. But I think that you do not do it and risk people's lives and livelihoods, right? It has to be well thought out. Don't just rip benefits from someone. No, you teach them to fish, and they can fish forever.
And that's one of the things. That's one of the things that incentivizes people not to work when they're on benefits, when they have all this government assistance. And if they go into the workforce immediately, if they fear that everything will be cut off immediately, it's like, well, I might as well just stay home, even if I'm capable of working. And that's one of the things that I even saw with my own father, is that he's been able to work in the past. He has had jobs, but he doesn't want to go into the workforce and lose those benefits immediately, which I can understand to a degree. I also, to a large extent, think it's that government assistance, too much government dependence can foster and facilitate laziness for sure. But I have another question, actually.
I will also say that I think that it is the job of the government to look out for the little people.
For sure.
So I think we ought to all remember, and we have to know what it feels like to at some point be in need.
Definitely.
It may not be the same need as someone else, but we've got to all remember that at some point we all will need something, or we have needed something.
Amen.
So we have to make sure that even in terms of how we are categorizing people, we have to make sure that we all approach it from a standpoint of caution and care. And so I do think that we push people to go to work, but at the same time, the least the government can do is make sure that we have, right? That we get taxed on our own money that we make.
For sure.
Right? You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
The
for
least
sure.
the government can do is make sure we eat.
Definitely.
I mean, to make sure.
And I
people
think one of the best things that the government can do for people
Sure.
is ensuring that they have personal responsibility in their lives.
I agree.
And there are cases, of course, where there's just so much. It varies, but sometimes the government gives out so many benefits, so many resources and stuff that it facilitates that kind of, that incentive not to work, to go out and actually be personally responsible, which can be really, really beneficial for people, as individuals, personal responsibility. But I also agree with you that the government should be in a place where it's actually helping people live and meet the bare minimum.
And I think as long as the approach is holistic, so I think that there should be assessments and things done, because again, not everybody has the same situation. So I think as long as there are assessments done, because not everybody just staying home because they're lazy.
Right.
And so
It's not always the case.
It's not always the case. So we have to be fair and make sure that we approach it holistically, not just from a economic perspective, but some of it is mental, emotional, spiritual, right?
Definitely. And I want to actually ask, you brought up the current administration and such. And of course, we're currently in a Republican administration. And District 1, as you know, of course, is a Republican district. I assume that you're running as a Democrat. How do you think you're going to reach out to those Republicans on the Eastern Shore and in the entire district? Because obviously it's not just the Eastern Shore, it's also people in Hartford and Cecil.
Correct.
How do you think that you are going to reach over those party lines and convince Republicans, which is the majority of people in District 1, to vote for you?
Sure. The truth is that before you were Republican, before you were Democrat, you were a human being. And I think that's what it boils down to. We've got to learn to be good human beings, right? And we've got to have some fundamental understanding of what it means to be a good human being. I understand the way this administration is going. They're trying to confuse and blur the lines of what it means to be a good person, what right and wrong is. But we have to get back to just some type of moral and values about ourselves. Right? I think that fundamental understanding is to look out for the least of our community. Right? Do unto others as you want done unto you.
Amen.
right? I think that these are the very simple things that have helped build our country. We've got to go back to that. It's not about party.
Right.
It is about what's right and what's just wrong. What would you want done to you and your family? It's not about party. It is about the candidate that's going to look out for everybody, regardless of race and class or creed, right? The board has been so scrambled to party lines don't matter anymore. We need someone who is going to fight for all of us to make sure all of us can eat, to make sure it's fair for all of us, right?
Now,
Make sure all of us have the help we need.
when you're saying all of us, I want to also talk about immigration. Of course, we have, of course, here in Maryland, we have some people who actually have went over to El Salvador to visit with some people who's been deported. How do you feel about what's going on with immigration in this country right now?
Yes. Let me first say this. It is a crime to deport people illegally. And I think a lot of times we look at immigration and those who are at risk and we talk about crimes that they may have committed. But it's also a crime to send people out of this country forever, to send them to other countries to live in prisons, and you have no evidence that they've committed a crime. Due process is one of the things that this country is built on. But to send people away because you don't like them, because they don't look like you, right? Whatever the personal reason, because I think it goes beyond policy at this point. I think that it's a crime. We've got to start calling everybody out for their crimes, not just poor people or lower class people, right? So I will say that it's a crime to deport anybody without going through the right procedures, right? And if you want to say that they have committed a crime, then you send them to court, arrest them and send them to court, not to another country. So that's the first thing I will say.
Sure.
And it is, I am not taking up for anybody, because if you have committed a crime, I believe you should be held accountable, right? But at the end of the day, you don't ship people to another country without going through the right processes and procedures, because here is where it's starting, but it will end somewhere else. Right now they're shipping, they're shipping one demographic away, but tomorrow it will be other people. You give them an inch, they take a mile. It's the old adage, right? But we have to make sure that it applies even for this administration. I will say that I believe that anyone who comes into this country illegally should be made to come in the right way, right? Now, I am not a person who, again, obviously, I'm not for deportation. So I don't believe it looks like deportation. I believe it means that we are building a system that works for all of us. It takes too long to get citizenship in America. That's on America. We have to also hold ourselves accountable. We cannot put it on others. It takes too long to get status. So perhaps we build more offices. Perhaps we hire more people. Perhaps we streamline the process, right? But we do not just detain people and send them to other countries. I think perhaps America has to make sure we build a system that is more robust and a system that is more efficient so that we don't lose people in the process. I don't believe we should have open borders for everybody, without making sure that people are documented and accounted for. But at the same time, deportation is not the answer. Especially not mass deportation without a thought-out process.
In that regard, in regards to deportation, with people who have already come into the country illegally and who may be here, what do you think the solution is for that? If it's not deportation, if they've come in illegally, they haven't come in the right way, maybe it was in the past, a couple years ago, in the past couple months, whatever it might be, you don't believe that they should be deported from the country. You think it'd be better for them to stay in the country?
Well, I started to say you were correct until you added the last piece. Jesus said, he who is without sin, cast the first stone, right? If that is the case, we must go back to how all of us got to this country. But nobody wants to do that. So, this is what I believe the solution is. Amnesty. The problem with America, and I love America. James Baldwin says, I love this country, which is why I have the right to critique it, right? The problem with America is they're built and they run off of penalty. There should be an amnesty. People will come, they will volunteer themselves if you present a process to help them get documented. Do we think people just want to be undocumented in America? They want to live in hiding? They want to have to do? No.
Of course not.
So we need to present amnesty and a way to just help them get through the process without penalty. But because they fear deportation and they fear consequences, they will never just freely present themselves all the time. I think that if we present a process that works, that doesn't take forever, where there is no fear of punishment or penalty, I think that that's a start.
Well, we have a friend, and actually he's part of our Bridging the Gap group. He's from South Africa, and he's been here in the country for the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, and he is working on trying to get his documents. And I agree with you on the part that the process needs to be sped up a little bit more.
Sure.
I also have a pastor friend, Pastor Dunlap, who works with DOJ, who he actually helped us to see it from a different angle. There are those that are here. They may be what is, quote, illegal, but they're not doing to be malicious or anything like that. Some of them actually have been taken advantage of, and he explained this to us.
Yes.
Sometimes they'd come over with the money, and somebody would come to him and say, I can help you to get it taken care of. They get their money, and they're not legal. So there are those that do need help, and they don't want to be illegal. I've also have had some, this is another spin on it. There are some that are legally here who are upset with those that come over here illegally, but they do it. I mean, those that come over here illegally, maliciously. There are those. But I agree with you. There needs to be a better process of getting people through. If they're wanting to be American, they're doing everything the right way. I mean, our friend, my gosh, he could own a business, from what I understand, up till he got, his work permit or whatever. He could own a business here in the United States, but he couldn't even wash the dishes if he owned it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I agree. There are some, I don't even want to call them loopholes. There are some spots that need to be fixed. I do also agree with you on the fact that we don't need to be prejudiced in how we treat people. Now, with that being said, there is a situation where there are some. We were talking about SNAP a while ago. I don't know how people get on it, because truthfully, like I said, my mother, when I was growing up, she didn't want to be on it. So she did her best to get off of it, but she had to be on it. But there are those that over here that do not have paperwork, that do have this. How do you feel about those?
And that's actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask, building off of what you were saying. To the people, say, in District 1, or just generally, Americans, that might be poor, that might be, not making the most money, that need these government resources, and they see illegal immigrants who are coming over, and the government has to, kind of expend these resources to the illegal immigrants and also to them, making it less for the American citizens. How would you kind of, articulate I guess, an anti-deportation or mediate with that, with those concerns, that people that bridge that gap, that people that are poor are seeing illegal immigrants come over and kind of use up some of their government resources that are for them because they're American citizens. How would you kind of respond to those individuals?
Sure. Again, we have to remember that we're all human beings.
I get that. But it's just like American citizens that are here, that live here, that work here, that are expecting help from the government, because that's what the American government should do, help American citizens. To the idea with amnesty, the kind of worry that those American citizens might have, that the illegal immigrants are taking the resources that they ought to have, that they might feel entitled to, that's kind of where the only issue is. I understand that everyone is human, but there's a difference between American citizens and people that are coming in, illegally.
It's interesting that you say that, because when we talk about, and I'm a pastor, and I will not preach the entire campaign, but you have to understand that even my politics, they arise out of a particular Christian ethic. And so when we talk about God, God is not regulated to America. He's not the God of America only. Right? And I know we say God bless America, but God bless America is not God's favorite song. God loves everybody. Black, white, Latino, Christian, Muslim. God loves everybody. John 3:16 very clearly reveals that to us. And so I think that if we created a society where we stopped seeing people as being so different or as other, but just saw them as people with God at work in them, it would be a lot better. The world would be a better place. We wouldn't have all the issues that we have overseas. We wouldn't have all these issues here at home in America. If we started just seeing people as people, all of us are God's creation. You've got God inside of you. And so I won't harm you, I won't mistreat you because you're God's creation, right? So I think if we draft policy and legislation, thinking and holding in mind that you are also God's creation. People who are here legally, they're also God's creation. What did he say? He says, there will come a day when, he'll say, Lord, Lord, I've done all this in your name. Well, they'll be trying to get into the gates. He'll say,
depart.
You depart from me. Why? Because he says, I was hungry.
Yep.
You didn't feed me.
You didn't feed me.
I was in El Salvadorian prison. You didn't come see about me. He says, I was in prison. You didn't come see about me. I was naked. You didn't clothe me. And they will say, well, Lord, when did we see you? This is in the Bible. He'll say, what you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me. And so we've got to learn to see everyone, even those who are here legally, as God's creation. And I think we'll have a little more compassion. And so I get it. Poor people here in America, they may look at those who are here illegally and say, hey, they're taking benefits from me. But if you've got a little morals and values, if you love God a little bit, you'll say, sure, they can eat too, right? We've got to learn to do unto others what we've had done. And I know we have to balance the budget. I know we can't just frivolously spend and give and give. We've got to make sure it's properly accounted for. I get all of that. But we want to be good people. We can't sell people on the American dream and then stomp on it when they get here.
Kind of drawing away, I guess a later topic is what I'll ask you is, are you excited for the primaries? For the primaries that you're going to have to run? I assume it'll be Democratic primaries for Congress over here on the District 1.
I am excited for the primaries. I'm ready. Working hard. Man, it is about the people. This is not about us as candidates. It's about the people. And we've got to get a person in there that's going to make sure that everybody can live a quality life, a better life. And I don't believe that's happening right now. So we've got to make a change, and it's got to happen now.
Do you have any opponents that you know of?
I believe so, but I won't name any names.
Right.
I don't know any of them
Smart.
personally.
All right.
No, that's understandable.
Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the president doing away with DEI?
Again, I think that it is another one of his awful moves that I don't believe he thought about first. I would love to sit down and get some insight into why he believed it should be abolished or go away. Because I can only suspect.
What does DEI mean to you? What does those three letters mean? I know diversity, equality. Is it equality or equity?
Equity, inclusion.
Equity, or in inclusion. So what does that mean to you when you hear that?
It means difference. It means difference, and it means welcoming and appreciating difference. And so I'm not surprised that this administration has attempted to do away with DEI because they want to exist in their own echo chamber by themselves. No one who does not look or think differently from them. And so you fire people who don't agree with you, people who, won't sing the same song as you. I'm not surprised they try to do away with it, right? They don't want to welcome difference. They want things to be monolithic. But that's one of the blessings of America, is that you could come here and exist and do well and live with your difference, but we would live together in harmony.
What qualifications do you have? What experience do you have? And what kind of vision are you bringing to the table that qualifies you to represent the people of
Good
District
question.
1?
That's a good question.
That's the final thing. That's the closing statement, if you will.
Sure. I think what qualifies me is that I look like the people that I am willing to represent in terms of everyday American, working class, knowing the struggles, the adversities, the pains, and the pleasures of everyday Americans. Know what it feels like to have to work hard. Again, I have risen from the poor and lower class communities, impoverished communities, as they call them. And I've educated myself. I've worked hard. So I'm not entitled. I've worked hard for everything I have now, right? So I am an individual who is determined, but I'm also determined to serve people. I love people. This is not a job. This is a calling. I'm prepared to serve. I'm ready to serve. It's not just about education and accoutrements, right, and what I've gained, but it's also about the experience. I know what it feels like to live in this predicament. So I think it's time Washington reflects the people that it represents.
Well, thank you for the interview. I appreciate it. This has been Bridging the Gap. My name is Colin McEvers again.
I'm Dave.
And we've been here with Terrance Rogers.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Nice to meet
Rogers'
you, man.
neighborhood.
Nice to meet you.
I'm glad to have been
Hope you
here.
have good
Yes,
luck.
thank you, my
so
friend.
much.
All right, wonderful.
All right.
Awesome.